What's up, people? Back with another reaction, back with another lucky dip, and we're back with one from Han Solo, in fact. Indeed, I didn't realize, but on one of the drives he's made available, enabling so many different deep dives, there is a folder miscellaneous. So yeah, I wasn't aware of that, but he will now be joining the lucky dip folder, which now includes material from 4 champions of the channel. And when I peeked into the miscellaneous folder, one of the first things that stood out was a track by Giorgio Moroder, a name I would not have known as recently as like a month ago, but I have listened to a few tunes now, a couple from back in the 80s, one from much more recently, and we're going to continue through that Deja Vu album, shout out to Adam. But yeah, the track that we're going to listen to right now, which my guess is this would be from farther back. A lot of Han Solo's material is indeed from, late 70s and through the 80s. So yeah, the tune is called Chase. So I have no context for this outside of now knowing who the artist is and having an expectation that there will be some electronic sounds, maybe a dance floor type of beat. But yeah, Chase, it speaks to pursuit, it speaks to a kinetic, physical process whereby there is both predator and prey, whether that's in a more literal sense or more figurative or more playful. So yeah, not sure what to make of it, but let's find out. This is Giorgio Moroder. The tune is called Chase. I'm not sure on the year, but I would guess the 1980s. Back into the 4. The percussion has a little bit of that like disco slide, but the synth work is very like new wave synth pop. We were on the verge of something. That high, like, electrical tinny layer fading quickly. Very acidy inner layer, if not overly overdubbed. Also, rhythmic sonic contributions. Someone dropped a metal pipe down a stairwell. Yeah, it's funny, I didn't say it in advance, but I actually figured it would be an instrumental. because it wasn't like featuring so and so. It was sort of like disco Vince Clarke before. Now it feels a bit Vangelis. It is funny how you bring them melodic element in, you take it out, and bring it back, and you take it out, bring it back, and by the second or third time, it's like your brain is like, it's that familiar thing that I already know. It's like, it's not overly happy or euphoric, but it's very smooth, it's pleasant. I do love that. Takes it to another level. But all the while, again, I feel like we could go two ways. We could break it down, it could peter out and die, or, which is what it feels like it's going to do. But yeah, or you could maybe bring it back. Yeah, we're coming back. Out on a limb and say that really is probably an actual 303. Especially if it's the 80s. Like nowadays, most people use software, hardware clones even. Obviously some people still have the real thing, but there's a lot of clones these days. Back in the 80s it was like, that comes in, it's like a ray of sunshine, like through the clouds. I was actually surprised that came back in. I thought we were really going to break it down and end it there. Like, sometimes like techno house or trance producers will put like a back cue, but it's like on the record, but it sounds like when you back cue like a it's almost like a on the record like line in, line out switch, like a DJ. Thinking about Chase, it suggests some sort of like drawing close, pulling away. Like there's the cyclical but also evolutionary nature of it. Yeah, it's like I could conceive of like a visual aesthetic in which, you know, the basic premise of Chase is expressed through the sonics, but yeah, still, you know, an abstract take given that there's no actual lyrics to, you know, give semantic substance to it. But either way, a really cool tune. Again, not necessarily overly happy or euphoric, but triumphant in a way, like light and smooth. I was gonna say floaty. It wasn't really floaty. Like it had a drive to it, but again, it wasn't overly happy, but it was bright and smooth and flowing. So yeah, a really interesting tune. Again, I don't know when that's from, but I would guess the 80s, not just because of like the context of it being shared by Han Solo, who again, I know listens to all sorts of music, but a lot of it is, you know, from the late 70s through the, let's say, mid or later part of the 80s. But ultimately, based on the sonics, I would say maybe the 80s, maybe the second half of the 80s. Either way, it's, you know, it definitely sounds like a mixture of some electronic styles, and my understanding is that he does have a history in the, you know, evolution of disco and certain like dance styles associated with disco. So yeah, my thought in the first few minutes of the tune is that, okay, some of the synths, the way they're electronic and very electric, it was making me think Vince Clarke, but again, the percussion was a bit, it had like this slide to it. It wasn't more like kind of straight away, you know, like faster new wave synth pop. So I was thinking like, you know, disco Vince Clarke, but then again, when that triumphant synth came into it, it sort of changed the game, and it was interesting to hear that come back again, because as I was saying, it's a funny thing when like an element is introduced and then a couple minutes later it comes back, because your brain is sort of like, ah yes, it's familiar, and it's like you really only just heard it, but you know, if it went the whole time, then it's still part of the same section, but you pull it out for a minute or two, you bring it back in, and then it, you know, it's different than if it was just, you know, still playing that minute later. So yeah, I enjoyed the composition of that one. It felt like an extended mix. It was definitely long. Like, it doesn't sound like a, you know, oh, it's a single that you like play on a, you know, 3.5 minute radio cut. Yeah, it was like over 8 minutes. So it's not listed as a 12-inch mix or extended mix, but it felt like that certainly. In any case, let me know what you think of this one. Shout out to Han Solo. I will see you next time. Peace.